The wrath of Hurricane Katrina, the storm that drowned New Orleans. New Orleans, the city of lively jazz music, dazzling festivals, and streets filled with laughter. But on one fateful day, everything turned into a nightmare. Warnings that were ignored. By mid-August 2005, meteorologists were tracking a tropical depression forming in the Atlantic. At first it seemed weak, harmless, but then it gained strength. Hour by hour, thick clouds swirled violently, winds grew fiercer, and when it entered the Gulf of Mexico, it became a monster. On August 27th, when scientists saw its trajectory heading directly for New Orleans, they panicked. This city, built below sea level and surrounded by water, could be wiped off the map if a powerful storm hit. The governor of Louisiana issued an emergency evacuation order, but not everyone could leave. Thousands of poor families had no cars, no money for hotels in safer areas. Elderly people couldn't travel far. And some believed it was just another storm. No one knew they had only 48 hours before disaster struck. When the storm took over New Orleans. On the morning of August 29th, the sky darkened. The first fierce winds howled through the streets. The ocean roared. And then Katrina arrived. Waves over 26 feet, 8 meters high crashed onto the shore, swallowing coastal areas within minutes. Winds of 175 km/h, 280 km/h, shattered windows, ripped up trees, and crushed houses like paper. But the worst was yet to come. The levees broke. The city's flood protection system collapsed, allowing water from Lake Pontchartrain to engulf 80% of New Orleans. Streets turned into raging rivers. Cars floated like paper boats. People scrambled onto rooftops, waving desperately for help. A young mother clutched her 2-year-old daughter, standing on their roof. But the water rose higher and higher. The current was too strong. Her grip began to slip. Her last words before vanishing into the darkness: "Somebody please save my baby." between life and death, at Charity Hospital, hundreds of patients lay stranded on upper floors. No electricity, no ventilators. Doctors took turns manually pumping oxygen into patients' lungs. But one by one, some slipped away. There was no way out. On the streets, desperate survivors searched for food and water. Stores were submerged. Supplies floated through the floodwaters. People broke into supermarkets, not for greed, but for survival. Inside the Superdome, where tens of thousands sought shelter, the situation was just as dire. No power, no clean water, no working toilets. Screams filled the air. Infants wailed. People collapsed from exhaustion. Some died right there in the crowd. But in the midst of this horror, there were heroes. Rescuers braved the raging waters, pulling survivors from rooftops. Doctors and nurses fought exhaustion, doing everything they could to keep patients alive. Strangers shared their last pieces of bread, their last drops of water. Even in the darkest times, humanity endured. The devastating aftermath. A city broken, a nation shaken. When the waters receded, what remained was a city unrecognizable. The streets that once echoed with jazz and laughter were now buried under thick layers of mud and debris. The iconic neighborhoods of the lower Ninth Ward, once filled with life, were nothing but ruins. Houses reduced to shattered wood and twisted metal. Cars stacked on top of each other like fallen dominoes. The air was thick with the stench of decay. But the most horrifying part was the silence. Where once there were bustling markets, vibrant parades, and joyous voices, now there was only the quiet mourning of a city in ruins. The human cost, a nightmare beyond numbers. Hurricane Katrina claimed 1836 lives, but this number barely scratches the surface of the true devastation. Bodies were found floating in the streets, trapped in attics or buried under rubble. Families searched for their loved ones for weeks, even months, some never finding them at all. Hospitals became morgues. Inside Memorial Medical Center, patients died because life-saving machines had no power. Doctors had to make agonizing choices, who to save, who to let go, as the days dragged on with no rescue in sight. And the survivors? They were left to face a reality more cruel than the storm itself. Tens of thousands were left homeless overnight. The homes they had built over decades were wiped away in a matter of hours. Children who had gone to sleep in their own beds woke up to find their world submerged. For many, the nightmare didn't end when the waters receded. FEMA's slow response left thousands stranded for weeks in makeshift shelters, with little food, no medicine, and no certainty of when or if they could return home. New Orleans wasn't just devastated by a hurricane, it was abandoned. Katrina has passed, but its memories remain forever. A city in ruins, lives shattered, tears blending into the endless floodwaters. But amidst the tragedy, we witness courage, humanity, and an unbreakable will to survive. Nature can destroy everything, but it can never extinguish the spirit of resilience. And the most important thing is the lesson we must never forget. Hit like, subscribe to ZoneMax, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next jaw-dropping stories about the most powerful storms in history. Because Katrina was only the beginning. Even deadlier, more devastating storms await, and you need to know about them. Brace yourself, the next storm is coming.